If you've ever set up an altar to Hecate with 3 candles at a crossroads, you're practicing something that didn't exist until the 1970s, and the actual goddess would barely recognize it. The Hecate most modern pagans know, maiden, mother, crone, moon goddess, gentle guide through darkness, was essentially invented by second-wave Wicca. Not recovered. Not rediscovered. Invented. The triple goddess framework never appears in ancient sources connected to her. Not once. Ancient Greeks and Romans didn't associate her primarily with lunar cycles either. That came later, much later, when modern practitioners needed a tidy system and Hecate seemed like she'd fit. What actually happened is this: modern paganism desperately wanted a female deity who felt witchy, who had that dark, mysterious energy but wasn't completely terrifying. So they took Hecate's name, kept the crossroads and the torches because those felt atmospheric, and retrofitted the Dark Mother archetype onto her. Gentle. Nurturing. Safe. The problem? An actual ancient Greek practitioner would walk up to our altars and have no idea what they were looking at. Wrong offerings. Wrong timing. Wrong prayers. Wrong entire cosmological framework. We're not practicing an ancient tradition. We're practicing a 1970s invention that borrowed an ancient name. And once you see that gap between who she was and who we've made her, you can't unsee it. Which means the real question becomes, who was she actually? Here's what they don't tell you. Hecate wasn't the goddess of choices or self-empowerment or finding your inner witch. She was the goddess of thresholds, the places where the living world ends and something else begins. Crossroads. Doorways. The edge of the graveyard at midnight. And she didn't rule those spaces alone. She commanded the restless dead, the unavenged, the spirits who couldn't or wouldn't move on. On the new moon, ancient Greeks would leave food at 3-way crossroads. Not as an offering to Hecate herself, but for the dead and wandering spirits she led through the dark. It was called the Deipnon, the supper of Hecate, and it wasn't devotional. It was appeasement. You left the food so the dead would eat and move on, so they wouldn't follow you home. And here's the part that really lands. Hecate shows up on more curse tablets than any other deity. Not by a little. By a lot. When someone needed to destroy an enemy, ruin a rival, bind a lover who'd left, they called on her. She wasn't gentle. She wasn't nurturing. She was the one you invoked when you needed someone's life dismantled. Ancient Athenians put her statue outside their front doors, and yeah, it was for protection, but not the way you think. It was a bargain. Acknowledge her. Feed her. Keep her satisfied. Because if you didn't, she'd turn the dead loose on your household. And once that happened, there was no undoing it. Here's what nobody tells you about working with Hecate. Every new moon, not full moon, new moon, when the sky goes black, Athenian households prepared something called the Deipnon. A specific meal. Eggs. Garlic. Fish. Honey cakes. You'd wrap it carefully, wait until after dark, and carry it to the nearest crossroads. And then you'd leave it there. For her. For them. Because here's the thing, you weren't supposed to look back. The moment you set that offering down and turned to walk away, the dead were already gathering. Hecate's court. The restless ones. The hungry ghosts who traveled in her wake. This wasn't some optional devotional practice for the spiritually inclined. This was civic obligation. If you didn't feed them, if you forgot, if you got lazy, if you decided it didn't matter, they'd follow you home. They'd settle into your threshold. Your dreams would go sideways. Your household would fracture. The ancient world understood something we've completely forgotten. Hekate doesn't come when called unless you've been keeping the old contract. She's not a goddess you add to your altar because she looks cool in a candle spell. She's the keeper of a very specific doorway, and that doorway swings both ways. Modern practice skips the Deipnon entirely, and then wonders why the relationship feels empty. The keys weren't metaphorical. In ancient Greece, Hekate literally held the keys to the underworld gates. She decided who crossed over and who got turned back. That wasn't symbolic power, it was absolute authority over the boundary between life and death. When the Greeks invoked her, they were asking the gatekeeper for permission, not vibing with some aesthetic. The dogs? They weren't her sacred animal in the way modern paganism uses that phrase. Dogs howled when she passed with the dead. Her approach through the night was marked by phantom barking that came from nowhere. They sensed what humans couldn't see, the procession of souls she was leading away. That's why dogs at crossroads made people nervous. It meant she was close. And those twin torches everyone puts on their altar? They weren't about illumination or spiritual guidance. They were how she hunted. How she searched in the dark for souls that tried to hide from her. She didn't light your path. She tracked what was trying to escape. Here's the thing that makes me uneasy. When you use these symbols now without understanding what they actually meant, you're holding up a sign for something you might not want to meet. You're saying I recognize you to a force that takes that recognition seriously. The aesthetics aren't neutral. They're an invitation. Here's what happens when you actually work with Hekate long enough, and this part gets left out of the aesthetic posts. She doesn't bring clarity. She brings confrontation with everything you've been burying. People report the same thing over and over. The moment she shows up, the stuff you've been avoiding gets dragged into the light. Because she's the goddess of things half seen, of liminal vision, of what lurks at the edge of your awareness. Which means shadow work isn't optional with her. It's the entire relationship. She will pull your worst stuff into the threshold and make you look at it. And you can't turn away, because that's where she lives, right in the doorway between what you think you are and what you actually are. The modern dark goddess framework tries to spin this as empowering. Reclaiming your power, integrating your shadow, all that language. But ancient practitioners understood it as terrifying. Her gift isn't comfort. Her gift is that she will not let you lie to yourself. If you call Hekate, be ready for crossroads moments where neither choice is good and you can't go back to who you were before. That's her actual domain. Not the candles, not the keys, not the Instagram aesthetics. The impossible choice. The place where you have to decide, and every option costs something. That's where she meets you. And she doesn't make it easier. She just makes sure you can't pretend you didn't see it. If you're going to approach her, and I mean actually approach her, not the sanitized version, start with the Deipnon. The new moon. The darkest night. You take real food to a crossroads. Garlic, bread, fish, eggs. Not crystals. Not incense. Food. The kind the dead would recognize. You leave it after dark, and then you walk away without looking back. That last part isn't superstition. It's respect for what happens at those thresholds when you're not watching. Understand this. Offerings aren't transactions. You're not trading honey for a parking spot. You're acknowledging her. You're saying, I see you. I know what you are. I'm not pretending you're something softer just because it makes me comfortable. That honesty is what she responds to, not your wishful thinking. And here's the thing most people get wrong. Don't ask her for guidance or empowerment. Ask her to show you what you're avoiding. Then brace yourself. Because she will. She'll drag it into the light whether you're ready or not. The relationship isn't love and light. It's respect. The kind of respect you have for something older, stranger, and far less human than modern paganism wants to admit. The next time you stand at a crossroads, don't just think of choices or moon phases. Think of the dead pressing close. The smell of garlic and fish. A goddess who doesn't guide you gently but forces you to look at what you've been avoiding. That's who she actually is. That's who's been waiting. Follow Blackfire Atelier. I'll see you in the shadows.